Hello and welcome to my channel. Here I review new movies and try to release a new review every day from Monday to Friday. Today, I'm going over Netflix's new movie, The Pale Blue Eye. It's written and directed by Scott Cooper and adapted from the novel of the same name by Louis Bayard. It's a thriller that takes place in West Point, New York in the year 1830. A young cadet is found hanging from a tree, and later his body is desecrated and his heart is stolen. The Academy calls up famous detective Augustus Landor, played by Christian Bale, to investigate. A young cadet called Edgar Allan Poe, played by Harry Melling, contacts Augustus and offers to be his inside man for the case. And after meeting with the odd fellow, Augustus takes him on. When another young cadet goes missing, they end up on the hunt for a serial murderer. The story follows Edgar and Augustus on their search for clues and flips back and forth between their perspectives for most of the film. The investigation isn't very interesting, and the time period is just a background aesthetic. The two run around interrogating people the same way they would in any modern cop show, but instead of having DNA and scientists to turn to, they have an occult expert. Edgar is an interesting person, but is more fascinating when he's talking about himself or his love for art than during any other part of the investigation. Harry Melling gives Poe a thick southern accent and a very charming artistic demeanor. He speaks eloquently and passionately and shows a lot of emotion over the course of the film. Melling nails the monologue toward the end and has a lot of chemistry with Bale and Lucy Boynton. Augustus is far less interesting than Edgar, but still works decently as a character until the third act. Bale uses a subtle accent and puts on a tired and haunted demeanor. His character spends a lot of time contemplating evidence sullenly and reacting to people's stories. He doesn't show much emotion until the third act, and I wasn't particularly impressed by Bale's performance. It felt like he was phoning it in. The case itself isn't compelling or complex. The movie only presents one suspect and then tries to frame a second halfway through, but it doesn't spend very long on this notion and immediately snaps back to the first suspect. There are vague mentions of the occult, religiosity, and secret organizations, but the movie doesn't delve into the suspect in any real depth. The film wastes a lot of time with Poe and different characters waxing poetic, and on a minor love story between Poe and Leah Marcus. The entire movie feels incredibly long and drawn out, and I constantly felt myself getting bored and looking at my watch. The movie takes a few twists and turns that don't make a lot of sense. The twists come from left field, aren't set up properly, and don't feel satisfying when they're revealed. The ending is the worst of all. They didn't do anything to earn it and didn't even hint at the outcome once before the reveal. The reveal has the killer and another character connecting vague details to recreate the murders, and it just feels like it comes out of nowhere. A needless twist to pad out the length. The cast features quite a few recognizable names and faces, but doesn't use them for anything more than basic character work. In fact, outside of Edgar Allan Poe and Augustus Landor, most of the characters in the film show incredibly muted emotions and get nothing but scraps for screen time. They do what they can with their time, and you get neat little moments out of actors like Toby Jones, Lucy Boynton, Timothy Spall, and Robert Duvall, but they're over in a flash. The soundtrack and visuals are well done, but aren't flashy enough or unique enough to be a draw of their own. The soundtrack is made up of basic Hollywood boilerplate instrumentals, but they're used effectively with the scenery and get the emotional impact right. The visuals are smooth and center the characters well, but consist of simplistic close-ups and mid-shots of people talking and a few wide shots of people walking. The film takes place on 4 different sets: a military academy, a small cottage, a bar, and a mansion home. The bar and the 2 homes are decent sets but don't stand out as time period appropriate. The military academy and the costumes they used are decently done, but all look a little too neat and tidy. Everything is poorly lit to give it a grimy, dark feel, which works for the vibe but makes everything hard to see at night. There aren't many visual effects, and there's only one scene that could be considered an action scene, and there's only one effect in that scene: a burning floor falling down on someone's head. The beam comes down and the actor just disappears. It looks bad and just comes off as cheesy. The Pale Blue Eye feels like most Netflix productions, like a lot of money was spent to get big names and faces and a decent look and feel, but no time or effort was spent trying to make the story into something worth telling. The most entertaining part of the movie is Edgar Allan Poe, and using him in this very basic tale of murder seems like nothing more than a gimmick meant to grab an audience's attention. The heart being cut out has nothing to do with his story, his expertise isn't all that relevant to the case, and his character, while interesting, could be any man with a poetic tongue and a braggart personality. I really can't recommend this film as the film is long, boring, and the third act is complete nonsense. 5 out of 10.